Greetings to my dear guests on this video. I wish you a pleasant viewing and look forward to your feedback in the comments. You can always tell when something's about to go wrong. It's not the big announcements or the dramatic speeches. It's the silence. The kind that creeps in through the corners of the office, slips into your coffee cup, and settles behind your ribs like a warning. That's what I felt the morning Chadwell Rusk walked into Coratech for the first time. I've worked in customer support for 6 years. And not the press one for billing kind. Real support. Human support. I didn't read from scripts. I remembered names, listened to the pauses in people's voices, followed up days later just to check if the issue really was resolved. I built relationships, one reply at a time. And until recently, that mattered. My desk was tucked near the back of the office, right next to the wall of windows where the light hit just right in the mornings. On good days, I could hear birds outside and feel like my work was a kind of service, like I was making something easier for someone who really needed it. I kept a little notebook with handwritten notes on long-term clients, their kids' birthdays, their software quirks, what made them tick. When Carl was still head of our department, he used to say, "Ginny, you're the glue. You hold the user experience together." That always stuck with me. But Carl's office had been empty for 3 days now. Officially, he was on sabbatical. Unofficially, he was never coming back. Then came the company-wide calendar invite, strategic realignment session, all hands. That Tuesday morning, we all gathered in the big conference room on the 18th floor. Too many faces, too little air. The new CEO, Chadwell Rusk, strolled in like he was headlining a TED Talk. Mid-30s, sharp suit, and a smirk that had been practice-honed in startup incubators and pitch competitions. He launched straight into his vision. Leaner, smarter, AI first. "We're stepping into a new phase of digital leadership," he said, pacing in front of a slide titled Efficiency Through Automation. "It's time we evolved from legacy systems and legacy thinking." I sat a little straighter. That word, legacy. It always meant trouble for people like me. Then he said it, casually, like it was an afterthought. "I don't need support specialists in the company. You can just use an answering machine." The room didn't go quiet. It froze. Someone near the front laughed. Too loud, too fast. But I didn't. I just stared at him, pen paused in my notebook, heart ticking faster than the second hand on my watch. He didn't look at me directly. He didn't have to. The message was already in the air, crackling like static. And yet, I didn't move, didn't speak. I just wrote the words down at the bottom of my page. Answering machine. That afternoon, whispers snaked through the office like smoke. Who was next? Which departments were being restructured? Someone said marketing was safe. Someone else said product had already lost 3 people. No one knew anything for sure, and that was the worst part. At 4 p.m., I found myself in the break room, alone, staring into a cup of stale coffee. I could hear my team's voices on the floor beyond, lower than usual. When I walked back to my desk, an eerie quiet had settled. No one looked up. Not even Anna, who always asked how my weekend was. I opened the CRM and glanced at my follow-up list. There were still names on there. People waiting for answers. Waiting for me. So I did what I always did. I called Darlene, who'd been having billing glitches since February. I logged the notes, flagged a suggestion for the product team. I did my job, even as the job itself seemed to be dissolving around me. By 5:30 p.m., my inbox pinged. A meeting notice. Touchpoint with CR, Wednesday, 9 a.m. CR, Chadwell Rusk. I stared at it. My heart did a strange little skip. Not fear, yet, but something close. A tremor, a knowing. I didn't sleep much that night, but I was in the office early the next morning. Hair clean, notes ready, coffee strong. Because if Chadwell Rusk thought he could wipe out 6 years of trust, strategy, and human empathy with a few buzzwords and an answering machine, he didn't know me at all. And there was one thing he hadn't taken into account, but he would. "I don't need support specialists in the company. You can just use an answering machine," Chadwell Rusk said. without even a flicker of hesitation. And then, just like that, I was fired. He didn't phrase it that bluntly, of course. No, it was wrapped in corporate euphemisms, streamlining, automation-first transition, winding down certain non-core functions. But the result was the same. My position was eliminated effective immediately. No 2-week notice, no graceful transition. Just a sheet of paper with HR's watermark and a signature that looked more like a logo than a name. I didn't let him see my shock. I didn't let him see the sting. I smiled. Calm. Cold. "Good luck?" I said, standing slowly. He looked confused, like he expected pleading, or gratitude for the opportunity to leave with a severance package and a list of available reskilling webinars. I tucked the paper into my bag and walked out, heels clicking with a purpose I didn't quite feel yet. But I knew it would come. What I didn't expect, what chilled me more than my own dismissal, was what happened next. By the end of the week, over 40% of the company had received the same message. Different wording, same outcome. Support, quality assurance, even several account managers. Gone. All non-core roles are being automated, Chadwell had said in his Thursday address, standing in front of a massive screen displaying colorful graphs and AI buzzwords. He grinned like he was announcing a new phone, not gutting the heart of the company. Efficiency is our new engine, agility, our new map. Behind him, a new flowchart spun up on the screen, and the room collectively leaned in, searching for their teams. I saw the moment heads started to turn. I wasn't the only one being erased. Not even close. Tasha, who'd managed client escalations with the grace of a surgeon for 8 years, gone. Devin, who used to fix bugs before customers found them, gone. And me, Ginny Harper, the voice in your inbox at midnight when your account crashed after a firmware update? I was just the beginning. The replacements? An AI-driven ticketing bot with a friendly name, Cora, and a promise that it could empathize at scale. Spoiler, it couldn't. But Chadwell believed in it. Or more likely, he believed in the savings. "We are entering a new era," he told us. "One where speed trumps sentiment, where machines won't get tired or take PTO." I watched the room. No one clapped. No one even moved. Because he didn't just say we could be replaced. He was saying we already had been. The real twist? It wasn't personal, at least not to him. This was business. A spreadsheet decision. He saw humans as temporary, meant to bridge the gap between chaos and code until the software could take over entirely. And maybe that would have worked, if he hadn't overlooked one small thing. Something you can't build into an algorithm. Something no machine will ever replicate. Memory. See, the systems Chadwell thought were self-running? I had built them, trained them, logged every workaround, every edge case behavior, every client quirk that didn't fit in a flowchart. I knew the support scripts weren't enough, so I had written my own. Quietly, iteratively, from the inside. And I wasn't the only one. The people he fired? We were the people who made things actually work. The duct tape and wire behind the shiny interface. The ones who knew that a resolved ticket didn't mean a happy customer. The ones who knew which clients needed a little extra attention or a phone call instead of a canned response. Chadwell fired us all before learning where the fire escapes were. And the funny thing about an answering machine? It doesn't answer back. But I would. Oh, I absolutely would. The elevator ride down to the lobby was excruciatingly slow. Maybe it always had been, but today I noticed. Each floor we passed made a soft mechanical ding, like it was counting down to something final. By the time the doors opened, I had composed myself into someone I almost didn't recognize. Shoulders back, chin lifted, heart a lead weight. There was no applause, no sad violin soundtrack, just the quiet shuffle of shoes on marble and the sterile hum of the building's air vents. I walked out of Coratech with my head high, a slip of HR's legally vetted farewell still warm in my purse, and a body full of adrenaline that didn't know where to go. I didn't go home. Instead, I turned right, walked 2 blocks, and ducked into a coffee shop I knew well. Neutral territory. A place I used to sit when I needed to clear my head between support crises or write customer feedback reports when the office got too loud. Today, it felt like a watchtower. From my window seat, I had a perfect view of the Coratech building across the street. It looked the same. That was the most absurd part. The same sleek glass panels, the same clean logo glowing like nothing had happened. From the outside, everything looked steady. But I knew better. Inside, the company was bleeding. Quietly, efficiently. Chadwell's kind of bleeding. Not with chaos, but with cold strategy. They didn't just let me go. They let go of the lifeline. Over 40% of us, support, QA, retention, legacy system staff, were all labeled non-core. As if the things we did every day were footnotes. As if we were side quests in a game they'd already won. And what replaced us? An AI chatbot named Cora, some outsourced QA firm with an Instagram page that looked more like a travel blog than a team, and a few fresh college hires who didn't know a routing protocol from a sandwich. I stared at the Coratech building and waited. I waited to feel grief, anger, humiliation. But what came instead was something sharper, cleaner, certainty. Chadwell thought I was just another support agent, that my job was answering calls and forwarding tickets. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that I had spent the last 6 years stitching this company together one customer at a time. When products shipped an update that broke 3 client dashboards at once, I caught it within an hour. Why? Because I knew what questions to ask and which clients would spot the issue first. When sales promised a new feature to a 300K customer that didn't actually exist, I was the one who soothed the fire and personally followed up with the product lead until the patch was live. When DevOps needed to triage crash logs from multiple time zones during a server migration, I built the timeline they used to trace the root cause, and I did it all without credit, without applause, because that's the job. That's what real support is. It's not about canned replies or deflection percentages. It's about relationships. It's about knowing that Darlene from Phoenix needs calls, not emails, because she has arthritis in her hands, or that Kareem from London won't open your message if you don't greet him in Arabic first, or that Ricardo in São Paulo will only speak to Miss Ginny because I was the one who walked him through the worst outage they'd ever experienced. You can't teach that in onboarding. You can't code it into a chatbot, and you definitely can't replace it with a flowchart. Chadwell didn't fire a support rep. He fired institutional memory. He fired context. He fired trust. I took a long sip of my coffee and opened my phone. I didn't scroll through social media. I didn't rage text friends. I opened the Notes app and started a new page. At the top, I typed, "Things only I know, day 1." And I started listing. Heliotech prefers callbacks before noon Pacific time. ClearCell has a known compatibility issue with our billing module, never documented. Client Noker44388B will churn if we don't release a dark mode toggle in the next update. They told me directly. The documentation link on the support site still points to the 2022 archive. Item after item, I typed. I wasn't trying to keep score. I was keeping receipts. Because I knew, sooner or later, someone would ask, "Why isn't this working like it used to?" And someone else would reply, "Didn't Ginny used to handle that?" And by then, it would be too late. They'd already replaced me with a machine that could answer questions, sure, but couldn't recognize a pattern, couldn't offer comfort, couldn't care. I watched the sun set behind the Coratech sign and leaned back in my chair. Let the systems glitch, let the tickets pile up, let the clients grow restless. I was out, but the reckoning? It was just getting started. The first warning came on a Tuesday. Tuesdays always seem to bring trouble, don't they? I was at home, curled on the couch with my laptop and a lukewarm mug of peppermint tea, half-heartedly browsing job listings, when the headline hit my inbox via an old press alert I'd forgotten to unsubscribe from. Coratech and Nimbus Soft announce groundbreaking CX Sync launch. I stared at it, blinking. CX Sync. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty windows. They'd gone through with it. CX Sync was the crown jewel of our partnership division, a customer experience integration platform meant to streamline client feedback, billing, live support, and analytics across multiple service layers. It had been in the works for almost a year. I knew the specs inside out because I helped write them. I had personally flagged 3 separate compatibility issues in early beta testing that caused sync errors between CRM systems, and now they were launching it. Without me, without my logs, my escalation notes, my pilot feedback from our test clients. I had tucked all of it into a shared folder, CX Sync, pre-launch QA, final. It was still there the day I was walked out. I bet no one even opened it. The next day, the second warning came. Tasha, a friend from engineering, who had been demoted and reassigned to a documentation consultant role, texted me from her personal number. "You didn't hear this from me, but it's bad. Dashboard errors, API timeouts. Someone hard-coded a client ID as static. It's causing duplication in the user metrics." My stomach dropped. I knew that bug. I caught it in week 6 of testing. We had a workaround, one I developed with a junior engineer who had since been reassigned to HR analytics. Without it, the system would misinterpret all new client data as belonging to a single test user, causing financial reports to skew by the thousands. If a client tried to cross-reference billing with support tickets? Nightmare. I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. Then I opened the news link again and scrolled to the comments. That's where it was happening, right there in the wild. One user wrote, "Logged in and half our customer records are duplicates. Support told us to refresh the browser. Unbelievable." Another, "CX Sync just merged our billing history with another company. This better be a joke." And a third, more pointed, "Coratech's new product is a UX dumpster fire. Bring back real support." I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and grim satisfaction, not because I wanted it to fail. I had spent months of my life building the foundation for this thing, but because I knew this would happen. They had launched without a safety net, and the people who could have caught the fall, fired, downsized. Non-core. The worst part? This wasn't even the real collapse yet. This was the first tremor. A gentle shake before the ceiling starts to crack. But I knew what was coming. CX Sync was used by 2 of our biggest clients, ClearCell and Metronova, both known for having zero tolerance for bugs. Metronova had once dropped a vendor for a 3-hour outage. If their CRM metrics were now compromised, they'd be on the phone with legal already. And no one left in that building had a relationship strong enough to calm them. But I had. I knew the Metronova lead personally, Caroline Yu. We used to email back and forth on Friday evenings about client escalation risks and the state of our shared gardens. She once said, "Ginny, you're the only reason I haven't pulled our account." And now? She was probably staring at a dashboard that looked like a Jackson Pollock painting and wondering who to call. Not that anyone at Coratech would answer. Cora, the chatbot, didn't handle nuance. She didn't know which contracts had manual renewal clauses. She couldn't flag when a glitch meant more than just inconvenience. And as for Chadwell, he was too busy posting on LinkedIn about transformational launches and AI-powered customer intimacy. I closed the tab, pulled out my old work notebook, and turned to a dog-eared page labeled CX Sync Failure Paths. I started sketching out what would fail next. Because it wasn't just a bug. It was a system collapse in slow motion, and I was the only one who still had the blueprints. 3 days passed. 3 days of rumors swirling like smoke through the industry, of social media complaints piling up, of whispers from old colleagues who still had access to the internal Slack channels. And yet, nothing official from Coratech. No press release, no apology, no emergency updates. Just silence. A heavy, manufactured silence. It was surreal. CX Sync had clearly launched defective, and users were already venting their frustrations on forums and comment threads, but the company's official communication channels remained dead. No response on the help desk, no callback confirmations, no support emails going out. I thought at first it was strategic damage control. Maybe they were regrouping. Maybe they were building a plan. But then, Tasha texted me again. They're not regrouping. They're not even answering the phones. There's no one there, Ginny. The support team is just Cora now. I blinked. What do you mean no one's there? They replaced everyone with the answering machine. I'm serious. You call support, it rings twice, and Cora tells you to check the FAQ. That's it. No queue, no escalation, no people. I dialed the number myself, just to hear it. Sure enough, a cheerful, lifeless voice answered on the second ring. Hello, and thank you for contacting Cora Tech Support. We are experiencing high demand at this time. Please refer to our online help center for the most up-to-date solutions. Goodbye. And then it hung up. No hold music, no option to leave a message, no press 2 to speak to someone, just goodbye. That's when it hit me. They weren't regrouping, they weren't listening, they weren't even aware, because no one at Coratech had built a system to hear the damage. They'd cut out all the ears, all the sensors, all the humans who knew when a client was lying, or worse, when they were too angry to bother calling at all. In meetings, we used to say the worst thing a client could do wasn't scream, it was go silent. If they weren't complaining, they were already leaving. And that's exactly what was happening now. The CX Sync team was probably sitting in a meeting room, surrounded by performance dashboards that showed normal engagement and no critical issues, because the metrics hadn't caught up yet. They had no incoming tickets, no red flags in Zendesk, no furious emails forwarded from account managers. Because there were no account managers, no one was escalating. The chatbot Cora was catching everything and discarding it like spam. If a message didn't match her keyword tree, she flagged it as non-actionable. If a client clicked around too much without finding an answer, she redirected them to a feedback form that no one read. They had automated away every cry for help, and now they were floating in a blissful fog of, no news is good news. It was almost poetic. They thought they'd made the company quieter, simpler, more efficient. But they had just deafened themselves to the truth. And truth has a way of screaming when you ignore it long enough. So I waited. Not because I wanted them to fail, but because I needed them to understand what they'd done. Not just to me, but to themselves. Because customer support wasn't just a department, it was a mirror. And Coratech had just smashed it. It didn't explode all at once. No, the downfall of Coratech began the way most disasters do. Quietly. Slowly. With a low rumble of something off in the distance, just enough to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Then the avalanche started. At first, there was only a whisper. A customer complaint filed in Canada with the Consumer Digital Rights Office. I recognized the name, Orion Analytics, a boutique firm I'd onboarded personally. Their issue? CX Sync had duplicated their customer entries across departments, corrupting not just their billing, but years of behavioral data. A disaster for a company whose entire business was predictive modeling. Then came another one, this time from Frankfurt, a logistics provider whose automated workflows had stalled completely due to mismatched timestamps in CX Sync's API. It wasn't just inconvenient, it had halted thousands of daily parcel deliveries across 3 countries. And they weren't just angry. They were filing a formal notice of data mishandling with their government watchdog. And then Brazil lit up like a fuse. Metronova, our crown jewel partner, invoked their SLA breach clause. A 37-page legal complaint citing negligence, misrepresentation of technical functionality, and breach of contract. But the clause that made my stomach flip? The one I helped draft. Immediate termination and liquidated damages trigger upon SLA violation. They weren't just leaving. They were billing Coratech for it. When I read that clause in the leaked copy forwarded by a friend in the legal department, I nearly dropped my tea. I remembered writing it 2 years ago. Caroline Yu, Metronova's VP of Strategic Ops, had insisted on it during negotiations after a small outage nearly cost them a public contract. She'd said, I trust you, Ginny, but I don't trust chaos, and I need protection against chaos. Well, chaos had arrived. By the end of that week, Coratech's legal department was on fire. Not literally, but close. Compliance officers were buried in documentation requests, legal aids were backlogged by 8 days, and external counsel was on retainer 24/7. Slack channels filled with half-coherent pleas like, "Does anyone know if we ever finalized the cross-jurisdiction consent forms? Why is there no rollback protocol in place? Who signed off on this launch without client signatures?" The real answer? No one did. And also, everyone did, because no one had been in charge. They'd cut the people who used to ask hard questions. They'd outsourced accountability. And now, when it mattered, there was no chain of command. Just a chain reaction. Inside the company, chaos was blooming like mold. Marketing tried to spin the story with a cheerful graphic and a vague, "We are aware of the situation, and thank you for your patience" tweet. It was ratioed in under 6 minutes. Engineering was blaming product for pushing unstable code. Product said the QA team was supposed to catch the bugs, but QA had been slashed 3 months ago. HR said nothing. They were too busy processing the resignations. Yes, resignations. The new hires, those fresh-faced recent grads who'd been promised innovation and momentum, they were fleeing. One by one, slipping away with exit interviews that read like postmortems. No mentorship, no structure, no accountability. I wasn't trained, I was assigned. I don't know what we even make anymore. And Chadwell? He was still holding meetings, still using words like resilience and temporary turbulence. He released a 2-minute internal video talking about an opportunity for brand recalibration. But behind the scenes, he was panicking. He'd held 3 off-the-record calls with our biggest investors that week. According to a friend in finance, his voice cracked halfway through the second one. "Why didn't anyone catch this?" he asked. They did. We did. We caught it in documentation, in test feedback, in Slack threads and support cases and customer interviews. But none of us were there anymore. He fired the people who were watching the storm clouds gather. And now he was surprised when the roof collapsed. The final blow came on Friday morning. Nimbussoft, the very partner featured in the press release with him just 2 weeks earlier, announced a temporary pause on collaborative ventures pending clarification of data integrity standards. That was tech speak for "we're out." They didn't even call, just issued a joint statement through their legal department, looped Coratech's comms in like an afterthought, and walked away. In the span of a week, Coratech had gone from a rising AI-powered darling to a cautionary tale. And the sickest part? The executive dashboards still didn't show a red alert, because there were no support tickets, no escalations. The machines were handling it. That was the lie. The answering machine was still chirping, politely ignoring every panicked customer on the other end of the line. And inside the Coratech bubble, executives mistook silence for satisfaction. They had no idea the real storm hadn't even hit yet. They say silence is golden. But at Coratech, silence had become something else entirely. Hollow, eerie, and far too late to fix. By the time the dust had settled, the dashboards stopped lying. Metrics flatlined. Client engagement evaporated. Refund requests poured in like floodwaters. The servers were still running, the chatbot still chirping, and yet, nothing moved. No loyalty. No trust. Just the echo of all the voices they chose not to listen to. And me? I watched it all, not from bitterness, but from clarity. This was never about revenge. It was about truth. I'd spent years building something invisible, delicate threads between the company and its people, between users and the product, between problems and their solutions. I had bridged the gap where automation always fails, the emotional space between inconvenience and abandonment, and they tore it all down, to save money, to future-proof. I tried to warn them, we all did, quietly, constantly, with tickets, logs, escalation flags, and late-night calls. But they didn't want ears. They wanted efficiency. What they got instead was collapse. Coratech didn't fail because of a single product flaw or a buggy update. It failed because it cut out the human system that gave context to the chaos. You see, every company has cracks. That's normal. What matters is who's watching them, who's listening to the tremors before the ceiling caves in. We were those people. We felt the shudders before the data showed anything. We caught problems that hadn't become statistics yet. They fired us. And with us went the early warnings, the culture of care, the safety net. In our place, they installed Cora, the world's most oblivious listener, programmed to offer cheerful deflection while Rome burned behind her code. I didn't go back to save Coratech. I went back to witness, to see if they'd learned. They hadn't. When Chadwell tried to reinstate me, I already knew the answer. I didn't come back for redemption. I came to make sure the last nail in the coffin wasn't hammered in silence. I made calls, not to fix, but to confirm. I told clients the truth. I validated what they already suspected. You matter less to them now. And they responded, not with anger, but action. They walked away, proudly, loudly. And when they left, they took more than their contracts. They took their networks, their trust, their stories. Coratech thought it had automated away the noise. What it actually did was sever every single lifeline. So here's what I've learned, and what I want anyone reading this to understand. Whether you're a CEO, a team lead, or just someone starting out, never underestimate the power of people who listen. You can replace processes. You can streamline systems. You can even fake empathy for a while. But eventually, reality knocks. And it doesn't use scripts. If you're building a company, remember this. The people who answer the calls, follow up at midnight, and remember your clients' names. They are your strategy. Not the algorithm. Not the automation dashboard. Them. You lose them, you lose everything. And if you're one of those people, if you're the glue holding something together, quietly, tirelessly, thanklessly, know this. You are not replaceable. You are not invisible. You are not non-core. You are the heart. And when the machine breaks down, they will look for you. The question is, will you still be there? As for me, I've moved on. I'm building something better, something honest, something real. With people who don't need a bot to tell them what support means. Because I don't believe in answering machines. I believe in answers.